This is about the mud, the dirt, and the setbacks that entrepreneurs have to go through to become successful. This is about the part of the iceberg that's underneath the water, the part that doesn't make the highlight reel. This is entrepreneur shit. Let's get it.
All right, guys, welcome back. Another episode. Trying to get as many reps in the books as possible, but we are on episode number 3 of the Entrepreneur Shit Show. And today, I have a very, very special guest. I feel like I say this all the time, but all my guests have been really special, but you're exceptionally special for sure. I mean that in the best way possible. But this person here is one of my best friends in my entire life, an incredible mentor, honestly, a family member. Truly feel like this person, we were separated at birth. And this person actually married me and my wife. That's how much he's basically a father figure / uncle, mentor, whatever you want. And this person is also very successful in his own endeavors in his life. An incredible real estate investor, started with absolutely nothing and has done over $35 million worth of real estate deals, all on his own, no outside money. Just an absolute incredible human being, and he is equally as impressive outside of business as he is with his family and his wife, and just really excels at so many parts of life. And I have the honor of being able to talk to you for the next hour uninterrupted, which is a special thing. So welcome to the Entrepreneur Shit Show, Mr. Brit Foshee.
Man, glad to be here. I'm almost got tears there to start out. So
I got a little choked up. I had to kind of fight through too.
Let's get those out of the way, man.
Bro, we've had a bromance for quite a while, but the best kind, you know. You've been there for me in a lot of different parts of my life. Good, bad, ugly, helped me in a lot of situations, been kind. So I'm truly grateful that, I have you in my life. And hopefully you're even slightly grateful to have me, but I'm glad that I can do whatever I can. But for this, tell me a little, just bring us up to speed. Tell us your story, how you got to where you are and became the Uncle Brit that everyone's going to soon know and love.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in a large family, 7 children, and my dad was a pastor, and my family worked really hard to provide, but it was just a lot with 7 children. And I just remember really early, I just don't want to be poor. And there were things that would happen. I remember one time not having the team shoes, because my parents just couldn't afford it at the time.
Right.
And I just remember man, I don't ever want to not have the team shoes again, and I don't want my kids to never not have the team shoes. And so I just had a lot of motivation as a young child to just really provide for myself and my family. And so I had just kind of made that promise to myself, and I was trying to figure out how to do it. At the same time, I had a lot of passion to give back to people.
Cool.
And to do what I could to just serve and teach and coach. And so I did a lot of that in my youth, which I was in the ministry. I was doing a lot of coaching, a lot of even mentoring early on in my early 20s and late teens. And so I found real estate kind of as a vehicle that I could kind of do those things and do real estate and kind of keep both promises to myself. Hey, don't be poor and give to people as much as possible.
Cool.
And so I started with my first property, and it was an absolute disaster. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath pool home. The guy, sadly was an alcoholic who had just kind of deteriorated. His life had deteriorated. You could tell by the condition of the home. And I'd actually go there and talk to him, and we ended up negotiating a deal. I bought that property. I at the time had $8,000 to my name.
Cool.
And during the time, the housing market was so poor, they were actually giving $8,000 to people just to buy a property. They were saying, we'll give you $8,000 if you just buy the house. And so I had $8,000 and they were going to give me $8,000. So I took the $8,000 I had and put it down on the property. And with closing costs and everything at the time, it literally took just about the entire $8,000.
Sure.
And I waited on that $8,000 check to come in from the government.
So this was an FHA loan?
FHA loan.
Okay, cool.
So 3.5% down. And I remember waiting, and dude, I was hustling so hard to find every deal I could. I remember finding a whole house worth of tile on Craigslist for $350. I mean, I was like,
dang,
any deal I could get.
So you like did like a live-in flip kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And then did you house hack it? Like, did you have other people living there? Like,
yeah. So I ultra house hacked. My ultra house hack was I actually slept on the couch of that house and rented out the 3 bedrooms.
damn, that's some dedication.
And then at one point I converted the carport to an illegal bedroom and rented out a 4th bedroom because I was just really serious about, not being poor and making money. And so, somehow stretched that $8,000 to flip the entire home. No idea how I did that, to be honest. And sold that property 2 years to the date of the day I bought it. And I ended up making like $40,000 on that first flip.
Sick.
And really, what I tell people is you just do your first deal. You get that first check. You're at that first closing. You see it on the HUD and you're just like, you're hooked, man. And
right.
So that got me. And took that money and just started rolling it into the next deal and into the next deal, into the next deal. And here we are today. So
what does like today look like? Like, what do your business looks like? Do you have other businesses? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so I have 3 primary entities. My primary entities are my flipping company, and we'll usually do north of $8 million of revenue inside that company.
That's sick.
And we're going to do anywhere from probably 20 to 30 flips, and those range anywhere from $1 million plus flips to $300,000 flips to buy them off market and sell them on market. I mean, we kind of do a little bit of everything inside that organization. And then I have a holding organization that just holds rental properties. That's all we do.
Cool.
We just buy and hold. That entity is actually named after my son and daughter. It's called Noellen. And so that just holds all of our I kind of consider that my legacy portfolio, just kind of hold it forever.
Yep.
And then about 6 years ago, I started buying landscaping companies.
Sick.
To kind of have like a more stable form of revenue source.
Sure.
And so as you probably know, real estate can just be really up and downs in terms of the capital that comes in and out. And I just wanted something steady. So I started buying small landscaping companies about 5 or 6 years ago and started kind of rolling them up. I did like a really miniature style roll up and own that company. It's called Greenleaf today. And that's what I'm doing today. So
that's cool. So with the landscaping thing, you say roll up. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, a roll up is a term in M&A, which stands for mergers and acquisitions,
right,
where usually it's private equity or just really wealthy individuals will buy a bunch of small companies and sort of combine them and roll them up into a large company. And the thought process behind it is the smaller companies trade for a smaller multiple of EBITDA than the larger companies do. And so
right,
to give you an example, if I can go buy a $500,000 EBITDA company for 3 times its earnings, which means I would pay $1.5 million for that company.
Yep.
I can take it and I can buy another $500,000 EBITDA and another one. And maybe, let's say I get 5 $500,000 EBITDA companies, and now I'm at $2.5 million EBITDA.
Right.
Which actually the EBITDA is probably going to go up.
Right.
Because you're going to be able to eliminate some staff and raise costs and raise prices, reduce costs.
Sure.
So your EBITDA actually usually increases. But let's just say it's $2.5 million. Well, a $2.5 million EBITDA company is actually going to trade for a higher multiple.
Right. Like some above 5x, I would think, right?
Yeah, 5, 6, 7. I mean, even higher depending on the industry that you're in. And so yeah. So there's just a really cool way to arbitrage paying a low multiple for a small company, attaching it to a company that already exists, and essentially overnight being able to obtain a higher multiple. And this can be done really quickly and really rapidly if it's done well.
Cool.
So
you did that company. You're still flipping and stuff at the same time.
That's right.
How have you created? I imagine it would have been pretty hard to kind of get that running on its own to where it's not really taking up a ton of your time, and you still have this extra income coming in from the business. You're able to kind of grow it, give the vision, that kind of thing. But what have you done to try to almost insulate yourself from all of those headaches and problems and stuff like that?
Yeah. What I've done is heavily incentivize my C-suite, my executive level people that work for me.
Right.
And so I just bring them in and I just take really good care of them.
Cool.
And, sometimes that looks like maybe a portion of the equity. Sometimes that might look like big bonuses. Sometimes that may look like, hey, like more relational capital. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to spend more time together. It just, everyone's kind of unique in the way that I've
Sure.
approached it. But that's the only way I've been able to do what I've been able to do is with people who I trust that have done just an incredible job. And so, and it's important to me that those people be acknowledged in my
Sure.
success, which is one of the things I love is surrounding myself with very high quality people. And you've been one of those people over the years, which is just people that are just stand up people in terms of their character, in terms of their work ethic. And they're just kind of fun to hang out with and be around. They're not boring.
Yeah.
And you certainly check all those boxes.
Hey, thank you.
And the people that have worked for me throughout the years have all usually checked those boxes as well.
Yeah. Fun fact. I worked for Brit for I think about a year or so. I think you're the only person I've ever worked for.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. I had a good time. I mean, I've never had another boss before to really compare and contrast, but I don't think I could imagine really a cooler boss. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I just couldn't call you after like 6:30 or 7. That was like the only, really challenging thing. But
That was my boundary.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
And boundaries are boundaries.
Yeah, it was like taming a stallion working with you.
I know, because I lose track of time, and then I want to call you at 9 o'clock at night. And
Yeah.
I'm still working.
I'm like, hey Logan, those are not our pastures. You cannot be grazing over there. Come back to the farm.
Oh, that's right, baby. So touch on the real estate stuff a little bit more, because you have such a wealth of knowledge for real estate investing. I think you're the best real estate investor I've come into contact with.
Wow.
You are the master at. Well, I learned a lot about you of deal making for sure. But you get some incredible deals. I always say you're the master at paying nothing for something somehow all the time. And just talk about your negotiation style, tactic, how you make sure you almost always get a really good deal on a property.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing for me is having a clear and firm boundary on what I'm willing to pay and what I'm not willing to pay for a property, and never deviating from that.
Yeah.
And so I have to know what I want going in.
Yeah.
And if it's not clear, if I just look at a property and I just identify it as something I want, and I kind of go in going, I just want to hopefully get a good deal, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for disaster, right?
Yep.
Because then my boundaries move, and then that number can move, and then that can set me up for failure.
Right.
So I have to know, this is the property I want, and this is the price I want to pay.
Yep.
So now I reverse engineer, how do I get there? And the way that I have to do that now is I have to make sure that the other party gets what they want.
Sure.
And so what is that? And so my job is then to go in and dissect what it is that they really want. And some people, what they want is they want a really easy transaction. They just want it to be simple, and they want it to be easy, and they don't want to have to do any work. They don't want to have to do any paperwork. They don't want to have to, they literally just want to be able to just show up to closing and get their money. And so I try to make that happen for them. And, with repeat sellers, I've created a history of where they know when I come to Brit, I don't have to do any work.
Right.
So there's that group, right? And then there's group that they want a fast transaction.
Yep.
They don't care about easy. They just want it to be quick, right? And so with those people, I'm like, okay, well, we'll close in 7 days. How is that for quick? And they're like, great. So with that party of sellers, I've created a reputation of being a guy who can close quick. And so
Yeah.
what ends up the boundary of the price I'm willing to pay doesn't change, but literally anything else can change, right? So
Yeah.
the speed of the transaction, the ease of the transaction,
Yep.
little things like, hey, you can leave everything in the house.
Right.
We'll take care of that. No problem.
Yep.
Hey, do you want to stay back for a couple of weeks? We'll do a lease back for you. And so we're always just coming up with creative ways to take care of people who are willing to sell us properties. But the one thing that we're not going to deviate from is price.
Right.
And we're also we don't hard sell anyone. You probably noticed that from working with me.
Yeah.
I'm not pulling anyone's arm to do a deal with me. I think
Right.
that's terrible business.
Yeah.
So I give where I'm at. I pitch where I want to be. And if we can meet there, great. And if we can't, then we don't do a deal.
Exactly.
Because I only want to do deals with people that in the end we're glad they did a deal with me.
Right.
The reputation is so important. And so if I'm like pulling someone's arm or manipulating them or kind of lying or doing like sideways things with them, man, it's going to come back to hurt me.
Yeah.
And it hurts the other party. So why would I want to do that? And there's a lot of guys out there, especially in the wholesale world, who will do things like this. And so for me, it's like, hey, if you don't want to do this deal, that's fine with me. Yeah. Plenty of deals out there. So
yeah, it was one of the biggest learning things that I learned, being with you. And Donnie, I know you can kind of attest to this. Like as a wholesaler, and I was a big wholesaler for many years. In fact, that's how me and Brit met. He was my number one buyer for many years. And I loved doing deals with him because it was easy. You didn't have headaches, right? But like when I was doing deals for you internally and getting properties for you to buy, my brain was still like very much in like wholesaler mode, which is like, oh my God, you're so excited that someone's even going to do a deal because it's so hard to get deals at wholesale level. And like, you would just be like, no, this is what I'm paying. Like if they don't like it, that is what it is. And in the wholesale world, it's almost like, hey, can we make a little bit of money? Let's just go ahead and do another transaction because we can make something. And you were like, no, I'm not doing it unless I'm making X amount. It's not worth it to me. And 9 out of 10 times we would draw that like hard line in the sand and the people would come back to us and take your price anyways. And I never did that in my negotiations. I was always just like, oh, let's do the deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one thing that to me is like a response is a clue. Like that's super important. Anytime anyone responds to me, it's a clue that they're interested.
Right.
I don't know how interested, but a response tells me like they got one foot in the door. Now I got to get them all the way inside the house, you know? And so for sure, and I think that variable has changed over time, Logan. So like there was a time where like I would do a $5,000 deal, right?
Sure.
Or I would do a $10,000 deal.
Yeah.
But over time, as your portfolio grows and your wealth grows, there comes a point where you're like, man, this just isn't worth my time. Like, why would I do a $5,000 deal here when I can do a $50,000 deal over here? Or why would I do a $10K deal over here when I can do a 6-figure deal over here?
Right.
And so there just becomes sort of like a strategic sort of move with your money and time.
Sure.
Where that philosophy changes. So, but there's nothing wrong with doing a lot of $5,000 deals. I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, no. And I think you knew when you had the leverage. And from what I've been able to identify from, learning from really good negotiators like you and some other people that I'm friends with, they always know when they have the leverage and they squeeze it hard.
Yeah.
And I just think I was oblivious to that for a long time. Like people would say something and I would realize, oh, this means I have the leverage, but I didn't even know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's just intuition.
Right.
You are right. I do know when I have the leverage.
Yeah, dude. And you get savage sometimes, like in a good way, like of getting deals.
Yeah. Well, what the leverage is just predetermined boundaries that have already been drawn, really. And so it's not unethical to know when like this is what we've agreed to, or so I'm even in a transaction now where I'm having to sort of understand where I have the leverage and where I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm having to pull the strings where I do and understand that I don't have leverage here. I cannot pull those strings. And so yeah, and I think a lot of that just comes with doing a lot of transactions and just learning different clues and different things that people say to kind of clue you in on what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And the other thing for me too is just asking point blank questions.
Right.
Which some people just are afraid to do. Just like,
yeah,
hey, is everything good with our transaction?
Yeah.
Like, instead of just sitting back wondering and having all this anxiety, just go, hey, like, are you feeling good about the transaction?
Right.
And now 9 times out of 10, you're going to get an honest response. So
confront it,
Yeah.
It's just like in sales, like you got to call people out on what the real problem or objection is.
Yeah.
It's not always what they tell you.
Yeah. And you're not coming at them.
No.
Hey, everything good. It's just, hey, like everything good with you feeling good about the deal?
For sure.
And usually people are really comfortable with that question and they'll give you an answer.
I love that. All right, I got a long series of questions, maybe not that long, but some stuff that I've, thought through other than our incredibly entertaining casual conversation. So, talk me through your best and your worst deal in real estate.
Okay. Yeah, so
if one of the worst ones is one of mine, leave that out. Just go to another one, okay?
I don't know if I can do that. You might be stuck.
Can we just? Well, we can edit that out.
All right. You. It's your show, so you edit what you want. So I'll start with my best deal. I think I might be in my best deal right now, actually.
Ooh.
I don't have a contract on it yet, but it's for sale. I think we're gonna do really well on it.
Sick.
But the one that I actually have completed start to finish it's a deal where it was right around the time of COVID. And so everyone was kind of freaking out and, the real estate market really had come to kind of a halt. Like prices were steady, but the transactions had just kind of stopped.
Right.
And someone had brought me this deal of a huge home that was on the river on like 1.5 acres.
Okay.
And the listing agent had listed it as a lot. And so if you're just looking, you would not have known there was a house on there. You just would have thought it was a lot on the river for sale that you could build on. And this guy had brought it to me. He's like, dude, there's a house on this lot. I think you could actually like flip this property. And that was music to my ears. So I drove out there and there's certain properties, Logan, that you like step onto and you're like, this place is magical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me just tell you that not many people would have said that seeing this house because it looked like something out of like a goth movie.
Sick.
And it was completely overgrown and it was the most hideous probably thing to like 99% of people. But I'm telling you, I stepped foot in that property and I said, this place is magical.
Cool.
And so 6,500 square feet on the river.
Jeez, big house.
Huge house. And my brother and I, it took us almost a year to flip that property. And we had to bring in like steel beams. And I mean, it was just it was a massive project.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of projects. So for us, even it was just a really big project. And we spent like $750 on the purchase price. We put like roughly $400K into the remodel. And we ended up selling it for like 2.2 million in cash.
That's sick.
Cash transaction in a year's time. And so that is definitely one of my best deals.
That was a really cool deal to see like unfold too. I got to kind of see it a little bit and was wild. The transformation on that house was insane.
And it's just a beautiful piece of property. It was just really rewarding, not just the money, but just seeing it as it was finished is like, man, someone's going to be really lucky to live here. It's just gorgeous.
So you paid what, 700? You put in 4?
So it was roughly like 750.
Okay.
And we paid around 400 for the rehab.
Nice.
And then we sold it for, 2.2 million.
Damn. You cleared basically $1 million.
About $1 million.
That's sick.
Yeah.
And then, but too, like just so people know the reality of that situation, you were using hard money that time too.
Correct.
So you were floating what, 10K a month?
Yeah, so I actually ended up financing the construction cost myself.
Oh, okay.
Hard money, there are lenders out there who will actually float that money to you. Sure. So it took me about I want to say it was like $150K that I brought to the table on the purchase.
Yeah.
And then I ended up financing the $400K myself.
Nice.
So my note on that was around like $7,500 a month.
Wow.
Plus taxes and insurance, which are not cheap on a property like that.
Did you get any moments of feeling a little nervous during that stuff?
Yeah, I think honestly the most nerve-wracking time is when you first list it.
Yeah.
And the activity might be a little slow. You're like, oh God, like,
dang.
Did I miss, am I like way over on my pricing? And
right.
You do get a little nervous after that. But I think leading up to it, a year's time was about what we expected. And we expected to pay that much in interest and taxes. And so
sweet.
We were pretty well prepared for it.
What about your worst deal?
So my worst deal is a deal in Port Charlotte. You're going to know this deal.
Oh God.
You're going to know this deal.
Is this the one with the green roof?
Yes.
Oh, well, if that's your worst deal, it was a lot of headaches though.
Well, and I lost money. So
yeah, which we try not to do.
Not a good thing losing money. So yeah, like I had just kind of decided, it was like right when I had brought Logan on, and I had just kind of decided that, man, we're going to really ramp this thing up and start to scale. And so I unfortunately at a really bad time started to get pretty loose with my underwriting. Mm-hmm. And it was really right at the peak of the market. I was
going to say it's top of the market though.
So it was like back in like early 2022. Mm-hmm. And we bought this house and we were told that, I think we might have even had a lease, and we were told that this lady would be out of the property, and it was an absolute disaster. And she wasn't out of the property, and we ended up fighting her, and she went to court, and she had all these reasons why she could stay, and she just prolonged the process. Ended up being like a 6-month process.
Jeez.
Where we're paying interest on the property, not getting rent from her. I think she did pay us like the first 2 months.
Yeah, that's about it.
Not getting rent from her. And she finally moves out, and then like Hurricane Ian hits.
Right.
And so now the property's even worse off than it was before. And it just was like nothing could ever go right with that property.
Yeah.
And at one point, I just decided like, I just don't want anything to do with this property anymore. And so I just sold it, took a loss on it, kind of just got it off my plate. And I don't even know how much I lost, but it was, probably $20,000, $30,000, something like that.
Yikes.
And you never want to do that. But that's probably one of my worst deals. Hated that deal.
Right.
And it was far. So anytime you wanted to go visit it, it was like a 50-minute hour drive. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking of losing, what's your advice on dealing with loss? Like just any loss, people might deal with, may not necessarily be financially, but just dealing with the feeling of loss.
Yeah. Around business?
Anything.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think the one thing that I would say is, I like to use this word that I've learned over the last couple of years called acceptance. And so many of us are wired to like try to, or even think that we can control every outcome.
Right.
That if we like diligently work hard enough and navigate, our life, that we can control what happens in the end. And I thought that, to be frank. And so when things didn't go my way, and when I did experience loss like this deal, it somehow became like a reflection of me. And so then I would internalize bits of like toxic shame and things that I thought it was about my character and my work ethic. And I'm not smart now and all this other, stuff that just isn't true. And so, yeah, I think around loss, what I have learned is to, depending on the degree of loss, you might need to have a period of mourning. Like if it's a lost loved one, you need to grieve that. I've learned that as well the hard way. But then have acceptance that it's a loss. And man, in business, this has been a huge gift to me because I literally could not live with the idea of loss. And so I remember doing podcasts, 3 or 4 years ago even. And one of my claims to fame was I'd be like, I've never lost money on a deal.
Yeah. I remember you would say that all the time, which was true.
And it was true.
Yeah.
And I thought I was so cool because I'd never lost money on a deal.
Yeah.
And what I found was that was actually more of a character flaw than it was something to brag about.
Oh, interesting.
And so the more that I got comfortable with the idea of loss, the more I was able to sort of scale and get beyond sort of this this idea that was really limiting me, that I was not going to allow myself to feel or experience loss.
Wow.
And so once I gave myself permission to feel and experience loss, I became much more okay with it, much more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so I've used this analogy before, but it's I never experienced loss, and I was doing 5 to 10 deals a year. Now I experience loss and I'm doing 25 to 30 deals a year.
Right.
And so it's you pick which game you want to play.
Right.
You want to play the no loss game and only do 5 deals.
Right.
Well, that's what I did for a while.
Interesting.
But now I play the game where it's I'm okay if I lose on a few.
That's the whole scared money don't make money kind of thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So what's interesting about Brit that you guys may not know, but that I know, and it's interesting to kind of see, you're around entrepreneurs, I'm around, business people. There's some that haven't done pretty much any inner work whatsoever. I would say they haven't done the work. And then there's guys like yourself and myself that have done the work, or at least some work. And you've done a lot of inner work and sorted through, feelings, emotions, past, things in your life. How have you seen that make a difference in how that plays out in business and, whatever, throughout your life, different sectors, but just having that better understanding of your feelings and your emotions and what certain things mean?
Yeah. I mean, how have I? It's been in every facet of my life. I would say it as bluntly as this, I was killing myself. Man.
Right.
My business was killing me. addictive behaviors were killing me. I mean, everything was killing me. And, you know, I like to say it like this, is like, I lived a life where like I wanted to keep everything else around me alive. So business was so important that my business grow and stay alive and flourish. And what I was willing to sacrifice and what I was willing to kill was myself. And through like the work that I've done, I've realized that is such an ass backwards way to like live life.
Right.
And like, no, man, like now I'm like, I am not going to allow my business to kill me. Does not have permission to kill me.
Wow.
And I'm not going to let addictive behaviors kill me. I'm not going to let these relationships kill me. And so now I become like much more like protective of like me and myself and my time and my heart and my values and my mind, that, man, if my business suffers, it's going to suffer, but I refuse to die for my business.
I love that, dude. That's fire.
I refuse. And you know, if you go listen to like 10 other podcasts right now, you're going to hear the opposite message.
That's kind of like one of the things I was going to bring up is like, yeah, it seems like especially a lot of the bigger like men in the business space, they kind of teeter on that toxic masculinity a little bit. And I think there's parts of that can be healthy, but healthy if you're aware of what you're feeding your brain.
Sure.
You know, because if you're just feeding yourself toxic masculinity type things and you don't have any idea, you know, how that's playing out emotionally, I think that can be a problem.
Yeah, man. And all I can say to that is that didn't work for me.
Right.
Maybe it works for them, man, but it didn't work for me. I mean, my life was about to fall apart. And, you know, on the outside, you probably couldn't see that.
Sure. But that's like everyone, right? And in the world we live in, everything's like just the highlight reel.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. But it was about to fall apart. And so I had to figure out something, man.
Right.
And so thankful that I had like men in my life that like pointed me in the right direction and directed me to the help that I needed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, went and got the help that I needed. And, you know, to your first question, it's changed everything, man.
Sick.
It's changed everything. My businesses, I think, have flourished.
Yeah.
Because of the work I've done. My relationships have flourished.
Yeah.
I personally have flourished. And I'm not just talking about like emotionally. I mean, I am flourishing physically.
Yeah.
Because of the work that I've done.
A lot healthier.
I'm flourishing mentally because of the work that I've done. And so I don't think that it has not touched it has touched every area of my life in some way.
I love it.
So
what do you think is like one of the biggest keys to being able to balance, if you even believe in that, if that's a thing, having successful business as well as, you know, you have a family, you're super involved with your family and your kids. Like, how do you kind of like manage that?
Yeah. Boundaries, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of joked about the boundary I had with you, but yeah, boundaries. And I didn't know, again, you know, something I'm sad that I didn't know sooner, but I just didn't think I needed boundaries. I thought I could kind of just manage my own stuff when I wanted, how I wanted. And what I learned, man, was that I needed like protection mechanisms for me, myself, and my family. And so I just set boundaries specifically around my time.
Yeah.
Like there's a certain time when there are certain people who don't get me at this hour.
Yeah.
They are not allowed to talk to me. And there's only a handful of people that get access to me after 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And I don't like, they can think or feel whatever they want to think or feel. A boundary's not for them. It's for me.
Right.
So it's to protect me and my family and my kids at all cost. And so that is super important, man. And something I really regret not having sooner. And I would have been a better husband and a better dad and a better human being had I placed those boundaries sooner. And so I'm glad I have them today. It's helped me tremendously. And yeah.
Love that. Yeah, no, boundaries are super important. A lot of people struggle with setting them though, you know, pretty hard.
Actually, yeah, I'll maybe correct that and say people don't have a problem setting them. They have a problem protecting them.
Or like enforcing them.
Exactly.
Like when people cross the boundaries, you know, what happens?
People will be like, all right, I'm not going to talk to anyone at 5. And that first phone call that comes at 5:30, it's like, and they pick it up, you know, and it's like, you know, the real problem becomes in having enough passion and anger for yourself and your family to really defend them at all costs.
What's the hardest part about being like a dad and, you know, all that stuff? Speaking of family.
Yeah. Man, being a dad is like the best thing and the hardest thing.
Really?
It is the thing I love the most, and it's the thing I struggle with the most.
But dude, I like because I come over to your house and I stay and like I'll watch you and Kelly parent and it's mad impressive.
Thanks, man.
Like you guys do stuff that I didn't see as a kid, and I feel like I had pretty good parents, but still like the way you guys handle things is very different. In a good way, but different from what I'm used to seeing, and it's like. It's impressive the way you guys manage parenting, in general. Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest thing for me, man, is like I can have all of these boundaries and mechanisms for, not being on my computer or not being on my phone.
Yeah.
But dude, I have a hard time shutting this off, right?
The brain.
So just because I come home at 5 p.m., I can't just like click into like dad mode all of a sudden. And that's super hard for me.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm working on currently is somehow being able to just turn off my brain and go like right now it's time to be a dad.
Right.
It's not time to be the owner of Noellen or the owner of Revitalized Homes or the owner of Greenleaf. Like there's that, all of that stuff has plenty of problems waiting for me.
Sure.
Right. But who needs me the most right now? And my highest calling and the most important thing for me right now is to be dad to Nolan and Ella. And it's hard. It is hard, but it's something I'm working hard on and something I want to give them really bad. So
yeah, I think I struggle with that too, because I catch myself like even on vacation, where you're supposed to be just like enjoying everything, and like all I'm thinking about is solving this problem and dealing with what I have when I come back, and like it's hard for my brain to unplug.
Yeah.
So
it is, man. It's hard.
How do you even like what do you do to stop that?
Yeah, I think for me, my wife is super helpful. And so one of the things that her and I will practice sometimes is when I come home is her and I will just immediately kind of engage in conversation.
Cool.
And that sort of like almost a signal to my brain and my heart to just kind of go, okay, attention over here, buddy.
Yeah.
And it really helps me like connect with her and just kind of refocus my attention to like my home and what really matters. And I give the credit to her because she's super intentional in doing that. And I don't even know if she realizes what she's doing.
Right.
But it's helped me a lot, just really kind of remove myself from work and really focus on being present where I'm at, which is at the home.
Man, your kids are going to be something to see when they get older.
We'll see. There's something to see now. So
no, I mean, they're amazing as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. They're special. They're awesome. So,
but, in terms of, people, maybe they're trying to start, maybe they want to do some of the things that you've done or you continue to do, whether that's flipping a house or, buying rental properties. What do you think is the best advice you could give someone that's trying to maybe buy their first investment property or even just get better at flipping in general?
Yeah, my advice is you need a mentor. Mm-hmm. You need someone who's done it and been there. And I want to just define mentor for a second because this is super important. A mentor is not a real estate agent.
Right. Yeah. Right? They stand something to gain, right?
That's right. A mentor is not a title, someone that works at a title company.
Yeah.
A mentor is someone who is actually done or doing what you want to do.
Right.
And I promise you most real estate agents aren't doing what I'm doing. And so
most real estate agents don't even have money.
Don't get me started on real estate agents. Probably some listening to this podcast. I don't want to offend.
I have the same sentiment. I mean, look, there's great ones. There is good ones in the batch.
There are.
But there's a lot of not good ones in the middle.
There are.
Yeah.
So. Pretty easy to get your real estate license. So.
Yeah. A lot of bartenders become real estate agents.
Part of the problem. Something sad though is I just listed a job on Indeed, and it was really alarming how many real estate agents and this was not for a real estate agent position, by the way. Yeah. It was just like a general admin position, and there was a lot of real estate agents that were applying. And I think the market's really starting to hurt.
Those interest rates are not comfortable anymore.
They're not. But man, finding a mentor, I think would be my number one tip. You could educate yourself to death, man. And I think education is important. Go for it. Educate yourself. But until you kind of get your hands dirty and your feet wet, that is what's going to give you sort of like the confidence that you need to move forward. And the only way I can really see you doing that without getting yourself really hurt is with a mentor. Because if you go try to do it on your own, you're gonna get. I think you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna get sued. There's a lot of things that can really go wrong for you.
Sure.
And I think having a mentor is something that can really bypass a lot of the pain. And really get you kind of fast tracked.
Because as you know, it is nothing like the TV shows.
Nothing. I've literally never seen closing costs or like real estate commissions
seriously
included.
That's the thing that drives me crazy. Yeah. Is it's like they don't put the actual cost of the deal.
We paid $400, we put 50 in, and we sold it for 500, and we made 50 grand.
Yeah,
you didn't.
And then by the way, like the appliance package they put in there is like a $15K appliance package, and they don't mention that whatsoever.
That's right.
They're like, hey guys, if you see at the end the sponsors of like the appliance company, they give them those appliances. Yeah. So pretty sweet, so if you try to do your flip with those baller appliances.
So the lesson of the day is don't trust the numbers you see on HGTV.
Yeah. It's for the ratings.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you all nerdy now because you're actually one of the smartest people I know in terms of like economics. I probably talk to you more about economics than anybody. So the Fed just raised the interest rates again. Another quarter basis points. I don't know which raise that is. Fourth raise?
No, that's like the 9th or 10th raise. It's a lot of raises.
So we are in May 2023. What do you think happens from here? Real estate market wise, economically, and how does this play out?
Yeah, I could go on this for a while, but
it's okay. We got a couple hours more if you want to just keep rolling.
Yeah. So here's what I think, and I don't have a crystal ball, so this is just my best guess at what I think will happen. And I think the Federal Reserve is done raising interest rates.
I agree. I share the same sentiment. I think it's the last one.
So, and whether they raise another quarter basis point or not, if you look at sort of the projections that the market has, the market is signaling that the Fed is done. And not only are they signaling that they're done, they're actually signaling that there would be actually a possible rate deduction coming in the next 30 to 60 days.
Sick.
So there's a lot of reason to believe that they're done, which means interest rates have probably peaked.
Nice.
And I think that's very safe to say.
Okay.
I would be very shocked if specifically mortgage rates go any higher than they have already been.
Okay. So is like between now and the next like 4 to 6 months, is that like the bottom of the real estate market and then it kind of comes back from there, or are we at the bottom now?
Yeah, it's hard to say because interest rates aren't the only thing that affects the real estate market, right? Supply and demand still matter.
Yeah.
And, what's really, it's wild that we've raised rates like we have, and we haven't just seen an outright, market crash in real estate. It's wild. And the reason that we haven't is because of the supply-demand imbalance. There is not enough houses, and there are way too many buyers. And because of this, what you've seen is a little dip in pricing, but moderately just kind of just steady.
Sideways almost.
For the most part. And so what I suspect is we see more of that. I think the Federal Reserve is going to do what they can to keep the long-term rates, which again, difference between the long-term rates and the short-term rates, but like, mortgages are largely based off the 10-year treasury. So those are longer-term yields.
Yep.
They're going to try to keep those longer-term yields pretty steady.
Right.
And I think because they're going to do that primarily for the real estate market, because the Federal Reserve, believe it or not, they do not want chaos.
Right.
Just as much as you don't want it, they don't want it either.
Yep.
Now you could argue whether they're making the right moves or the wrong moves to do that. But I do believe that they do want things to go well. I do really believe that their motives are good.
Right.
So, but they already have major issues. I mean, you've all seen it in the news with the banking crisis and SVB and all this, FRC and all these bank collapses. That's a major problem. And to like pretend that it's just like some little thing it's not true. It's a major problem. And then you've got major problems in the commercial real estate space right now.
Yeah, like office is like getting smoked.
Like massive problems.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff being sold at like 50% of what it was just 3 years ago.
Yeah. The only thing that's doing decent in commercial is like apartment buildings and some retail stuff, right?
Yeah. And even apartment buildings are not nearly as safe and as risk averse as they were just a couple years ago.
Sure, I agree with that.
Even some of those are getting beat up pretty well.
Wow.
And so you've got that issue on your hands. You've got the bank collapses on your hands. You've got a lot of things that are starting to break. And so it'll be really interesting to see how the Federal Reserve responds. But the one thing that's remained pretty resilient through the whole process has been residential real estate. And so I continue to be, I don't know if I'd say bullish, but I am by no means bearish on residential real estate. I think residential real estate is going to continue to be steady. And my guess is if you do see any reprieve at all in interest rates, if you see a 50 basis point deduction in interest rates, your buyers are going to flock.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a whole, because, everyone's been holding off because interest rates are high.
Yep.
And so what's going to happen when they come down? Everyone's going to jump in. And so you sort of have this same sort of buyer repression happening right now that you had, again, I think it was like right post-COVID.
COVID, right? Pent-up demand, basically.
Pent-up demand, yep.
Yeah.
I think you have some of the same thing going on now, man. So I think long-term residential real estate is safe.
So it's tricky because it's like we're kind of either in the bottom or really close to the bottom. It's like, do you buy? Because I agree, if the interest rates come down, then the real estate value prices should go up.
I do think that's what will happen.
Yeah, same.
But I don't necessarily think that interest rates are going to fluctuate down too far. I expect to see a pretty steady rate over the next like 24 months would be my projection. So, I don't know what that exactly would put interest rates at, but I would expect to see them somewhere between like 6.5% to 7.5%. And I don't see a lot of deviation from that over the next, 24 months. That's just my best guess. Could be wrong. I don't have an algorithm telling me that. It's just kind of me predicting what I think will happen.
Do you think we'll get back to like a 3-4%?
Not anytime soon.
Really?
Not anytime soon.
Because it's got to kind of like stabilize a bit.
Yeah. I mean, inflation still is an issue.
Right.
But it's not as big of an issue as deflation, which is what I like to say. Like, people don't realize that, like, they've been complaining about how expensive their eggs are. And it's like, which would you rather have, like expensive eggs or getting kicked out of your house?
Yeah.
Because you don't have a job and everything's deflating. It's like, I think deflation is a much riskier problem. And I think the Federal Reserve is going to do everything they can to, eliminate that risk before they would eliminate having just a little inflation. So,
yeah. And I'm still buying them eggs, man. I don't care what they cost.
Dude, milk and eggs, baby.
Dude.
Looks like you've been eating a lot of eggs,
At our
actually.
house, dude, I would probably kill 24 eggs in like 8 days.
Yeah, it looks like you ate 24 yesterday. You look swole.
I get my protein in, man.
I see that.
So do you think they're going to move away from the dollar? That's a real dirty topic to talk about nowadays.
I mean, who's they?
So there's a lot of like, I guess they passed it, but like speculation in terms of them trying I guess it's the federal, but they're trying to move to that digital, federal centralized currency thing, which I think is a terrible idea. They have that in China and it's bad. But it seems like they're trying to move towards that. So they would bypass banks and basically, also bypass like any intermediary, like credit card companies, those kind of things. And it would just be, digital between the Federal Reserve and the citizens.
Yeah. So CBDC, central bank digital currency, I think is absolutely a thing. And I think it's absolutely coming. What the mechanisms that roll out of that are, I don't know. And I tend to, that's the kind of the first I'm hearing of that in terms of like the direct payment, but I would really have a hard time believing that they're going to try to bypass banks and credit cards altogether.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really bad move. And you still need credit. You can't just have liquid cash floating around all the time.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think it's coming. I think it's scary. I don't know. And everything that I read and the studying that I've done up on it is they're setting it up. And so they've kind of got all the cards aligned and they're waiting for the right time. And I think you'll see some big crisis come out. And when that crisis happens, they'll find a reason to roll it out. And that will be when people kind of move over to it. I think it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when.
Yeah. So do you think that affects like the US dollar and all, like, or is that just the USD now is just a worthless paper?
The way I understand it is that they'll just be a 1-for-1. So a dollar on paper will be the same as a CBDC, a coin, or
so you'll just go exchange it. Or
it'll
whatever.
just be 1-for-1. Yeah,
Wow.
That's the way I understand it. And if anything, the Federal Reserve will have more. They'll have more immediate power to adjust the currency.
Sure.
They could literally do it like that, which is essentially what the Chinese do by pegging their currency.
Sure.
So we'll become probably a bit more like the Chinese.
They just have like total utter control of shutting people's money off whenever they want to.
That's the scary part.
Charging you for jaywalking.
That's right.
Automatically.
Yeah. Or you posted a video about Biden, and you can't do that. And so
which it's already so
can't
scary.
get your Starbucks today anymore. So
Dang.
Yeah.
Cutting me off of caffeine.
Yeah.
Citizens will riot.
Yeah. Well, for you, it'd be energy drinks.
Dude, yeah. I know. My kidney would probably be pretty happy, though, if you take a break. Well, dude, I've had an absolute blast. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for, being on the show. I feel like we've been, rolling about an hour or so now. So tell, the people, I'm sure there's probably going to be like 100 million people watch this, give or take a couple million. Where can they find you? Where do they follow you? All that good stuff. They can see your traps.
Yeah.
Check out, you guys see the body on this guy, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. I've been doing your training regimen, so.
You got I think it's the forehand in the pickle. Like when you go and you put the spin on it, it's just all trap, dude.
This is a pickleball body for sure. Yeah. You just look like a pickle after you've played.
I'm powered by pickles.
That's right. It's like an inverted pickle. So yeah, you can find me on all the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, @FosheeFlips on Instagram, and just search my name on the other ones, Brit Foshee, and you should be able to find me. Have some stuff on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and I think he actually does respond to DMs. If you shoot him a DM, he'll probably respond to you.
Occasionally, if your question's good.
Well, dude, thank you so much. Love you.
Love you.
I'm so glad that you could come on the show, and hopefully we make this something super cool.
Thanks, man.
All right, peace.